I'm Kate. Welcome to Blooms in the Yard. Today I'm going to talk about why you should be growing herbs, 9 reasons why you should be growing herbs in your garden right now. Whether you are a vegetable gardener or a flower gardener or you just want to have a nice landscape, you really should be growing herbs. I'm even going to say that if you're only growing a little bit of vegetables or you're struggling to grow vegetables, you might as well just grow herbs instead. Herbs have huge ornamental value in the garden, but I'm actually going to talk about growing them in your vegetable garden first. So the number one reason you should be growing herbs in your vegetable garden is your grocery bill. Now, if you go buy a cucumber, it's going to cost you about $1. If you go buy a package of thyme, it's going to cost you probably around $3 or $4. So also think about the size of that plant, a cucumber plant, how much space it takes in your garden, and a thyme plant, okay? It's going to take way less space to grow that thyme, and you're saving yourself more money at the grocery store. When I first started growing vegetables, I didn't really see the value in growing herbs because I thought, well, I can't make a meal out of rosemary and thyme. So you can go to the store and pay $4 for broccoli or $4 for your herbs. And if it's a lot easier to grow the herbs, then maybe just buy the broccoli, right? If you're tired of dealing with those white moths that destroy the plants every year. Now, if you have space and time and you're great at growing vegetables, awesome, like do it all, right? Do the herbs, do the vegetables. But if you're kind of newer to this and you're struggling with vegetables and you just want to see some results and save a little money on your grocery bill, then I say go for herbs and start there. Here's my thyme. I've already cut this back once this year. I just tossed it, but I definitely, at some point throughout the year, will dry a bunch of it. And honestly, it's looking like now is a perfect time to do that. You want to do it before it starts flowering, and you would just shear all of this back, cut it like here, put all of this into a paper lunch bag for a week or two, and then just separate out the stems from the rest of it. I cut it back probably at least 3 times a year. I always have a big jar of thyme. It also can be really a cute gift, a little spice jar. Homemade gifts are just kind of sweet, so that's an option. Little rosemary and thyme jars straight from your garden for Christmas gifts. Reason number 2, herbs are so easy to grow. Well, I'll tell you, herbs are super low maintenance. I pretty much stick them in the ground and don't think about them again. Most herbs are Mediterranean plants, so they don't take a lot of water. Reason number 3, herbs take up much less space in your garden than your vegetables do. So you can have 5 different herbs growing in an area where you would maybe only have 1 tomato. Rosemary is not quite hardy enough for us here in Kansas, so usually I keep it in a pot and I just bring that pot in and out. Sometimes I will put it in the ground and then dig it up out of the ground, put it in the pot to bring it in, and it's done really well. I usually have 1 plant last for several years. Especially with the thyme and with the rosemary too, there's so much that you might as well dry some and have it for that purpose as well. So all I'm going to do is stick this in a paper lunch bag for about a week, and then after that week is up, all the dried stuff will fall off and I can just separate out the 3 stems. Many herbs are perennial, so you don't even have to buy them every year. My thyme I bought 10 years ago and I still have the same plant. I've actually moved it a couple times. I've never lost it. The 3 herbs that I have that are perennial are thyme, sage, and chives. Chives are a fabulous plant to have in your landscape. They're beautiful. They're a little less showy than your summer blooming allium, but they have a very similar look. They bloom in the spring. I use them just like I would green onions. So I've given these to people a lot and they say, oh, I don't use chives. And it's like, well, if you have a recipe that calls for green onions, you can use the chives for that. When the flowers start to look spent or fall over, I just cut the whole thing down to the ground. I do that 3 or 4 times a year and you'll get fresh green growth to eat fresh chives, and you'll continue to get new blooms as well. Okay, reason number 5 to grow herbs is these plants are cheap. Now, I will say they're actually cheaper at a local nursery than they are at the box stores. So I usually buy them in a 2-inch pot and they're going to be $3 to $4 at my local nursery. I do buy my parsley in a 4-pack, which I'll kind of talk about. I like to have more of it because the swallowtail caterpillars like to eat on it, so I just like to have plenty of that. It's just great to have parsley so that you don't have to go to the store and buy it. It's just convenient. I usually do 3 plants. I buy like a little 4-pack or whatever. Now, one thing that does happen with the parsley, which I'm okay with, is it gets eaten quite a bit by these swallowtail caterpillars. But that's why I have 3 or 4 of them. They've never eaten everything off of the plant, and it's fun to be helping out those butterflies. It is a biennial, so it will come back the 2nd year, but the 2nd year it blooms, which is not really what you want for eating. So I do replant it every year, but if you want, you can let it go ahead and bloom that 2nd year, plant some fresh to eat, and then you'll have some interesting yellow blooms, just kind of like an accent flower maybe to go with something else. Herbs are also super easy to grow from seed. So your herbs that are not perennial, that are annual, you can easily start them from seed every year. The 2 that I grow from seed are cilantro and basil. Then I have my culinary basil. This is Genovese basil. I only grow 1 plant of this because I know I'll get plenty. This is right about the time when you'd want to start pinching it back. So when it starts to form these pretty little leaves in here, it's getting ready to bloom, and you don't want to let it bloom. It'll get like a stronger licorice flavor. Here you can see one that's really about to bloom. So you definitely want to pinch that back. All you do is just come in here with your fingernail, and you can definitely still use that to cook with. And then you'll have 2 branches where you had 1. So I definitely could do quite a bit of pruning today. And so you can prune where I just did, or you can go back further. You could go here, or you go here. So it's not going to make a big difference. What you want to do is make sure you're getting back to where it's not going to bloom. So the more the better. So this is kind of like zinnias. The more you cut for vases, the better. Basil's the same way. The more you cut and use it to eat, the more you're gonna get. And you can see it's super simple. If you don't have long fingernails like me, you can come out here with some scissors. You don't want to take the bottom leaves because those are what's really feeding the plant, and those are well established, and that's what you want to leave. And those ones would be less tasty anyway because they're older. You want to eat these fresh new leaves. The best way that I have found to preserve basil is to make a pesto and put it in the freezer. Pesto, it's a pretty simple recipe. It's just going to be basil, garlic, Parmesan, olive oil, maybe a little salt, and some pine nuts. And so just make a big batch of that, and I've seen people will freeze it in ice cube trays or something like that. And then if you get fresh basil out of your garden and you put it in the refrigerator, it's gonna turn black. So the best way to keep basil temporarily would be to put it in a glass of water, like a vase of water. I usually try to just harvest it whenever I need it, so it's super fresh. Reason number 7, most of them are smaller and have that lower growing habit, so they actually make a great ground cover in your vegetable garden. So if you do have some tomato plants growing, something like that, you can shade the roots of that plant with your lower growing herbs. So here's my cilantro, which I just seeded again in July. You will have to succession plant this, which means like about every 6 weeks, you'll want to keep putting new seeds in the ground to keep it fresh. Well, it's not quite big enough to start harvesting the leaves yet, but you can get some cilantro leaves pretty soon. This is something that you'll want to plant several plants of. It's not like the parsley where one plant will get you a lot. You'll want to have a lot of seeds of this going. And once it goes to flower, then those flowers will turn into coriander seeds. So a lot of people don't know that that's the same plant. But I'm really growing it for the cilantro, and so I want to eat it while it's got fresh, short leaves. Once it starts to flower, you're not going to really eat the leaves anymore. The flowers are kind of nice for a filler in vases or just a little accent in the garden. You can let it go to seed and collect those seeds to plant more, or you can just cut it down and start fresh. You can start the cilantro as early as late February or March here in Kansas, and then you can just keep replanting it. All right, now number 8 is probably the most important reason. It's like my number 1 reason kind of, and that is that rabbits and deer don't like these plants. Their strong smell makes them unattractive to rabbits and deer, so you actually don't even have to grow them inside of your protected vegetable area if you have an area like that. I originally grew mine inside of my vegetable garden, and then I realized, you know what? Rabbits don't mess with these things, and so now I've kind of spread them throughout my landscape. I do still have some in my vegetable garden, again, to shade my tomato plants or just because I think they look nice in there, but I can put them anywhere and I don't have to worry about the rabbits messing with them. If rabbits are a problem for you, I'm actually working on a video that will be coming out soon about gardening with rabbit plants that rabbits don't mess with in my yard. So if you are struggling with that, definitely subscribe so you don't miss that video. I'm going to move on to why you should grow herbs for ornamental value in your landscape and in your flower garden. The sage that I grow in my garden is actually, like, it looks beautiful, and it's actually the same plant that I eat off of. Berggarten Sage is a variety of culinary sage with a compact growth habit and large rounded leaves and a strong flavor. It definitely looks better in the garden than the typical culinary sage, which has more elongated leaves and is taller. It looks similar to a lamb's ear, but it's a lot more functional because you can use it for cooking. I will grow sage always just to have brown butter sage. And you can put it on like potatoes and chicken, and it is just like delicious. Brown butter sage sauce is made by cooking butter and sage leaves together until the butter browns and the sage crisps. It makes a delicious, nutty smelling sauce. I have an amazing chicken recipe that you sprinkle brown butter sage leaves on top of. I'm gonna put a link in the description. It's a lot of work, but it is amazing. Okay, so my 9th reason for growing herbs is that they look fantastic. I grow golden oregano, variegated oregano, and the Kent Beauty oregano. And I grow all of these just for their ornamental value. You would definitely want to stick with the culinary if you're going to eat it. But these, they're so easy to grow, so low maintenance. They look beautiful. So these ornamental oreganos are super valuable in the landscape. and they're perennial. This is the golden oregano, and I have it really throughout my garden. This is the spot it's the happiest. So it is getting a little bit of shade here, but mostly sun. And I just love that pop of chartreuse. I think it looks really nice kind of close by this purple sedum. Now this golden oregano is getting more sun, and you can see that it's almost like sun bleached. It's doing okay, but it's a little bit sun bleached. Like this golden oregano next to the blue star juniper. Really nice foliage color contrast there. This is my new favorite decorative herb. This is the variegated oregano. You can see how great it looks with next to a white flower. My hose gets dragged over this multiple times a day, and it doesn't have any trouble with that. I'll definitely be using it in other places in the garden. If you're kind of into new or interesting plants, you might have seen this Kent Beauty oregano around. It's just absolutely stunning. And at first, when I first started hearing about it, it was a little harder to find. This last year, they just had it in the herb section at all my local nurseries. So not expensive or hard to find anymore. And it's just gorgeous. This Kirigami oregano looks a lot like the Kent Beauty oregano, but this one I actually grew from seed, and it was labeled Kirigami, and it definitely has a slightly different growing habit. It's a little more kind of open, not as tight and compact, but the flowers look pretty much identical, and so I just wanted to point out that there was a slight difference. The other herb that I grow for ornamental value in the garden is basil. Now, it is an annual, and I grow it from seed every year. There are several varieties that I grow. I grow the dark opal basil, the purple ball basil, and the cardinal basil. Like the oreganos, these basils have been bred for their looks, so the flavor is going to be pretty strong. You're not going to want to eat these ornamental basils unless you're really adventurous, and you can try them and see what you think. I think I took a bite of the cardinal basil one time and I was like, okay, I'll stick with my culinary basil for cooking. This is dark opal basil planted in here. I really like to use this dark opal basil in my pots. In fact, I probably have one in almost every pot. It just adds a really great contrast to everything else. And I will say I bought one package of this dark opal basil from Home Depot on a whim maybe 5 years ago, and I'm still using that same package. I start maybe 12 seeds a year, and then it's plenty. This purple ball basil is kind of different. It has really fine leaves, and it kind of grows in a little bit of a small ball shape, and I basically just use it as a little bit of an accent. Here I've got it with these red begonias just to kind of add a little bit of contrast and interest in this pot. Now I am really a big fan of this cardinal basil. It does flop a bit, but isn't that beautiful? And I mean, it looks good with so many different things. It looks good with this blue and this sage. and it's just a really pretty color. I almost forgot about my cinnamon basil. Now, I did not grow this one from seed. I saw it at the Amish greenhouse and just grabbed it and threw it in a pot, and I think it's been pretty in that pot this year. I've had a couple people ask, oh, can you tell us how to grow these things from seed? And I'm just gonna kind of save that for winter when there's not anything else to do and we all want to garden, and so we'll be inside working on our seeds. So I will have some videos coming out about that in the winter. Okay, so with thyme, I'm using the same plant in my landscape. It looks really nice to eat off of. So I just have culinary thyme. Now, I did recently try to grow some more decorative thyme in my side yard, and it rained too much and it wasn't happy. So that was kind of a fail, but my culinary thyme has done well for years and years. And so all of those same benefits that you get from growing herbs in the vegetable garden apply to growing herbs in your landscape. They're very affordable. If you compare the price of a $3 2-inch herb pot at your local landscape center to like paying $10 to $15 for a perennial, you know, the price is amazing. And of course, rabbits will not mess with them at all. Now, the one exception may be parsley. I have always grown my parsley in the vegetable garden, so I can't say whether rabbits would mess with it if I put it in the landscape. If anybody maybe has experience with that and can say whether or not the rabbits will eat the parsley, you could leave that in the comments. But all of these other herbs I have grown in my landscape, and the rabbits have not eaten any of them. And so all of these make a great ground cover in the landscape. And so the benefit of having ground cover is it will keep the soil moist and cool and shade the roots of the plants. You won't have to spread as much mulch every year, so it's a huge benefit. So then I do have this curly marjoram, which I also bought in the herb section, but I'm using for decorative purposes. These Mediterranean herbs can really take drought, which is why, one of the reasons why I plant them. This to me kind of has the look of a creeping Jenny, but for full sun. I like the way it looks, just kind of coming over the pathway a little bit there. What I should do is I should put another one on the left side, because this is just an annual, this purple flower. So that might look good if I put another curly marjoram on the other side. I hope that this video was helpful. I really have enjoyed growing herbs, and I feel like a lot of people are missing out on this kind of segment of gardening. So I hope that this inspires you to maybe try something different.